Yeah.
How was the tour with Judas Priest?
Oh, it was good. It was, well, we call it a tour, I guess, but it was, we just played on some shows on their reunion, the beginning of their reunion tour here in Europe. It was fantastic. We were lucky enough to get asked in 1991 to tour with them on the Painkiller tour, and had Pantera was the opening band on that. So it was Judas Priest, Annihilator, Pantera. At that time in '91, that was an amazing tour. It was just a lot of fun, and a lot of fun for the fans. But then to be asked a second time to go and play with them was, one time is rare. It doesn't happen to most bands, but twice was incredible.
Yeah, that tour in the early 90s.
Yep.
Probably helped you to get over this low profile of metal in the early 90s. Yeah.
It did to a certain extent, but that's a year or two before heavy metal just died in North America, and in most parts of the world the popularity went right down with all the sales. And I think about probably 98%, 99% of all the heavy metal bands that were around in the 80s were gone in the 90s. So while that tour was good for us, and that album that we toured for was called Never Neverland, that was our biggest selling record, and that was, we were just a bit too late starting. If we'd started a few years earlier, it might have done some different things, but it all worked out really good for us. Annihilator managed to put out, this is the 11th studio CD now, and I've been putting CDs out every year and a half. So still going, surviving.
How was the scene in Canada when you started off, especially for thrash metal here in Germany? There are those three big thrash metal bands, Creator, Sodom, Destruction.
Yeah.
Is there something similar in Canada?
Well, there was some Canadian. Well, we got Russian Triumph from the older school, but then for the older school thrash metal and the heavy stuff, there was Voivod, Exciter, Anvil, Razor, Sacrifice, Annihilator. I think there may have been a couple more bands, but there was a group of us, about 5 of us, that started in the late 80s and mid 80s, early. I started in '89 with my first record, but some of the other bands are around a few years early. But no, it's almost disappeared. I mean, some bands are trying to come back and reunion and all this kind of stuff, but it's still not even a scene. Devin Townsend and Strapping Young Lad and stuff, they're a good band, but that's a little bit different type of music. But
and Voivod just lost their heart and soul.
Yeah.
Do you think they have a chance of going on?
Yeah, maybe in the memory and in the name of Voivod and Piggy, maybe a lot of fans might really want to see what they can do and continue on doing, because I'm sure Piggy probably wanted them to continue.
Yeah.
So I think they got a chance.
On the other hand, Piggy wrote most of the stuff, I think.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean it would be better or the same, but I'm sure he wouldn't. I don't even, I've met him before, but I don't know him well, but I'm sure he would have wanted them to continue. I don't think he would have wanted them to stop.
Yeah. Okay, to get back to your album, how would you characterize Schizo Deluxe musically?
That's a tough question. Oh, it's the best album in the world, buy it.
No, seriously.
No. When you, that's the thing, I guess I could speak for a lot of musicians, because of many that I've talked to in the last 15 years, a lot of them say the same thing, and that is when you write a song or draw a painting or whatever you do that's creative, and if you do a record, you feel like it's the best thing you ever did, and it's the best I've ever done. And usually after time you can look back and you can be realistic, and you see that some songs that you wrote were good, some were okay, some were classic songs, and some were, some of them were bad. Sometimes, depends. So right now I'm at the stage where I think it's the best album I ever did, but we'll see later on what the reality is of that. I think usually I judge it now from the reactions from the press. I mean, a lot of, many bands sell records with bad reviews. I mean, the press might hate a record, but it might do very well with the fans. But I've known the press people here in Germany, and most of them, and through Europe for many years now. They're honest, and they'll tell you if they think, yes, this is a good one, or this is not so good, wrong direction. And so far it's been all positive. So that's the first time for a few years that I've got all positive reactions.
And in spite of the interruptions, for me up to now it's really hard to judge it. There is no slow song on this album, no ballad this time, so it's not that schizo.
Yeah, I think that's about the only thing I went into this record planning or pre-planning was I usually put maybe one ballad and an instrumental or an acoustic or a classical guitar piece on my records. Not all of them, but most of the records have at least one instrumental and a ballad. This time I just didn't put one on. The songs I was writing just seemed to have a lot more energy than the last few records, so it was, some were faster, but even the slower songs were just had a lot more energy, so it kind of felt like throwing in an instrumental or a ballad just didn't fit this time, so left it off. And then some of the reactions I'm getting are, oh, you're back to the roots, or it's more thrash metal, but it's not back to the roots. It's not all thrash metal record. There's thrash influences and riffs, guitar riffs and stuff, and some really good drumming on it. But it's just I don't know. It's hard to explain. I think all our CDs are quite different. We have a lot of different sounds and changes in our records.
I thought to hear some serious punk influences as well in at least one or two songs.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like I grew up on the British wave of metal, the Priest and Maiden. It's Ozzy, Randy Rhoads and that. Then I was into a bit of Van Halen and stuff. But then I started the Bay Area thrash stuff with Exodus, Anthrax, Slayer, Metallica. And then I did have the early Creator and Destruction influences. But I play jazz guitar, classical guitar, heavy metal guitar. So I write and like ballads to thrash metal, to punk, to everything. I mean, I like all kinds of music. So if I'm the only songwriter in the band, it would make sense that somehow all these things are going to come out on songs sometimes,